These may not be the fanciest starting stalls that you've ever seen in your life, but they've probably been here since yet again won the Rothmans July back in 1973 and is currently known proudly as the Hollywoodbets July. We're going to have an opportunity in part 2 of the road to the Hollywoodbets July to chat to former champion jockey of South Africa, 13-time champion jockey Michael Roberts, who is the trainer of the favourite See It Again. We also have an opportunity to speak to Justin Snaith, who has no fewer than 5 entrants in this year's Hollywoodbets July. And of course, he's got Do It Again, a dual winner. He's got Pomp and Power. He's got Pakaya. He's got Silver Darling. And he's also got a very, very good horse called Without Question. I'm going to have to start with the soldier of all soldiers, Do It Again, because they couldn't run a July without him. I don't know how we're going to run a July when he retires. But I gather this is probably his swan song.
Yeah, look, we've pretty much called it. He may disagree. He'd like to go for 7th. I can promise you he's got the wheels for it. He's a most incredible sound horse. Everything is amazing about him. He just glides. He uses what he has to the max. But he looks after himself. That's why he's 8 years old, still going. And he could go another year. But we just feel it's the right thing to do. And we raced him very sparingly through his career. There were never prep runs. He would only come out in a big race. And that's why we're here at 8 years old. We didn't have to go do those 1200s to get him fit. He'd go straight into group racing. And that's why he is the sound horse that he is. He's been an incredible horse to train. Sadly, he's not a cuddler or anything like that. It's not like you can go to his box and say, oh, let's have a cuddle. He's not interested. If he was a jockey, he'd be Anton Marcus. Very similar. So, and that's why they always got on so well. Last year, I thought he was very unlucky in the running. I thought nothing could have possibly gone more wrong for him in the race than it did. And he still was out in front, 100 to go. So, doing very well at home. I think he's actually doing better this year than I did last year. Last year, we may have been 1 run short, and that also didn't help the whole situation. I think this year we've got him absolutely spot on. 6 draw, 6 run, 6 number 6. Wouldn't be surprised. Right jockey, Gavin Arena, right temperament for him, big race rider. Couldn't ask for a better goodbye than what's set up for what may happen on Saturday.
Is the good draw that he's got wasted on him, or is it just nice to be there for free?
No, 6 draw I take all day long. Right draw, right horse. He's won from the widest draws, I think, in this race. He's had good draws. Last year, as I said, he hooked into the straight, 5 deep. Not ideal. You never see a race run like that. It's a strange thing. The Hollywood Durban July is run a certain way, and you never ever see it run, another race run like it. I mean, where would you see a horse come 5 deep into the straight in front? Doesn't happen. All the rules go out the window when it comes to this race.
Okay, well, let's go to the jockey that probably had the choice of rides. He's won it before. He's a specialist, as are Team Snaith, at winning this particular race. Let's go to Richard Fourie's ride, and Without Question.
The interesting thing, I think, with Richard riding Without Question is that he's never questioned that he's riding this horse. It's always been this one. He's never, because Pakaya is a very well-weighted horse in the race, and there were times where I thought he might say, oh, well, I want to ride Pakaya. Never at any stage has that ever been the case, which I do find strange. Normally a jockey, once they choose one horse, they want the other.
Like Bulgarian.
Yeah, but he's committed to this horse. As we get closer to the race, I think he's made the right decision. The closer we get, the more confident I'm getting about Without Question. He's putting every foot in the right direction. He's a young horse, but it's like training a 5-year-old. It's a very weird one, this horse. He's very, very mature for his age in the way he handles things. He was right up in the pace in the Derby. He went flat out. We needed the pace to be hot in the race. For the type of horses I had in the Cape Derby, he was one of the horses we allocated to go up handy, and he still ran 3rd. I didn't rate him as highly as maybe I should have. If I'd held him back a little bit more, he may have run even closer in that race. I think that was the run of the race, in my opinion, because he was the one that was up front, pushing the tempo, and still ran, beaten a couple lengths. He gets 2 kilos from the favourite, which I think will certainly help. It will make a difference. It will bring us closer. The concern obviously is at Seed again. His last win, he looked like he had more in hand. And he'll come on from that run. But in saying that, without question, had just arrived in Natal before the Daily News. Hadn't even been here a week. So you've got to think that he's going to... I've had time now to relax with him, prep him, have a gallop at Greyville. I thought the gallop was one of the best gallops of the day. A lot going for this horse. The weight advantage, the draw, stable elect. It's got a lot going for him.
The Greyville 1900 has produced many a winner from this race, going back to Lightning Shot in 1977 and Bold Silvano. But the bottom line is that this horse couldn't possibly have been more impressive. And if you didn't have the firepower that you've got, he would be a legitimate horse to contest favoritism for the race.
I think Pakaya, the run in the Greyville 1900, although he won, I don't think he was near his best. Wasn't remotely near. I can tell you that right now. He looked like he was hanging towards a little bit. He didn't look comfortable to me. He had never been to Greyville, no gallop, just arrived in the province, hadn't even been here a week. So much has come on from that race. I do think that I could be found wanting because I couldn't run him again. If I then put him into the cup trial and he got more points, I start running into the 54, 55, let's say 55 kilos. Why come out and run a cup trial when you can come in with 53? You must remember that I've done all the work here in Natal with all my runners with no jockeys. Everything is done in-house with my work riders. I haven't had any jockeys advising, and that can also come back and bite me, but at the same time could certainly help. If I've nailed it, he could be the horse to beat purely on the weight. He's not the best horse in the race. I'm not saying he is. He's the best weighted horse in the race, I think. Especially a lot of people, there's a lot of confidence going with Winchester Mansion. We were 2 kilos worse off last time. We're level weights now. Plus, I think we've come on. He's had to go back to Joburg, which could be an advantage. I do think the way Brett's doing things this season, he seems that he is getting an advantage. The horses are running above their expectations. You've seen horses like Time Flies arrive in Natal with low ratings and run way above expectations. So they certainly, what they're doing is working. But I do think by me staying here, doing all the grinding with Pakaya, doing the July gallop, not going and putting him on a grass track at Reinke's, a sand track at Reinke's, I do think that, or I hope, that effort pays off.
Okay, now let's talk about this little darling filly of yours. She obviously won the Wollavington last year. She's a year stronger, a year more mature, and take her Wollavington run this year on face value.
One thing I do look at, okay, so when you see a horse like Dave the King, when he's running against his own age group in the Daily News, smaller field, own age group, you take the fillies race where Rain and Holland, all of them had an easier task. It was easier, it's only a small fields, only a few fillies. Same thing happens when you take those horses, the 3-year-olds, the older horses, you put them all together, all of a sudden that horse doesn't get that easy run. It's simple. In this race, it ain't no easy. You make the race tougher. The first furlong out of the gates is run harder. It's like me saying I'm a good runner, but then I take on a big field. I can't go with them for the first 200 meters. I'm under pressure. You see it in the Dubai World Cup. You've got people have traveled across the world, and in the first 200 meters, they're not in the race. That's what this race is like. We buy horses according to this race. We're looking for that extra stamina. You get a stud farm like Drakenstein that breed according to something like this. She's by a brilliant stallion. The mare is world class. We want it as tough as possible for a filly like this. Then that puts, in my opinion, the other fillies under pressure. Do they have the quality and the stamina of a race like this and can go as hard? And I'm hoping that will be our advantage with Silver Darling. She needs the 2-2. She doesn't get it anywhere in South Africa. There's no, unless we race in Johannesburg in a 2-4, this is her moment. When we put that all together, can she make something happen? I don't think we can make it any better for her. She's got the right rider, a guy that's also very chilled. I think we've nailed our riders in these horses. So I'm hoping for a positive run. And if any of those other fillies have a chance, if a punter likes those fillies, you've got to then like her as well.
Pomp and Power. I'm not in the business of blowing smoke up anybody's backside, but a masterful exercise in keeping him calm, and also a very nifty bit of riding to not let him go and to get back on again so quickly. A superb gallop as well, floated.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of I think Milan should take a lot of the credit. Milan has pretty much turned this horse, I'll be honest. Through his work with him, then gave me the opportunity to then do what I can do. Prior to that, I was battling with this horse. I was trying to be the Mr. Nice Guy, and this horse was having none of it. He is impossible, possibly one of the most head case horses I've ever trained. And but he's changed, different horse. In the July gallop, I actually let him go. I wanted to see what I'm dealing with, so the only way I can do it is do it myself. The video coverage is quite bad, and I don't get to see the actual things of what's going on in the gallop. I see a horse trot down, and then next thing I see a horse galloping around. I needed to actually witness it for myself and work out exactly, watch his heart rate, watch his mannerism, see what's actually ticking him off. So I had him, and I had no problem. And then I let him go. And the interesting thing is, instead of taking off, he came back to me.
Separation.
Yeah, so he was confused. Like, I let him go, and I went with him a little bit, and then I thought he was going fast enough, and I said, right, you're on your own. And then I slowed down, he came back to me. Yeah. Great sign.
Of course.
The rider wasn't expecting it, but it was all good. Got him back on, went again. I went faster, got him into momentum, and then I just watched this horse take off. There's gears there with this horse. Make no mistake, there's gears. There's proper gears. He is his own worst enemy, but he hasn't shown that bad side of him in a while, since we've worked with him. So I don't see any big issues on race day. I think he should be fine. The 18 draw is, if there's one draw you could tell me we could have, it would be 18 all day long. He's a horse, you can imagine him being on the fence. Now, do we go, don't go? Then he fights. 18 draw, Bernard is the perfect rider for 18 draw. He ain't worried about nothing. He'll stay out there on the outside, wait for his moment, do what he needs to do, and I think that is just amazing. I would have taken 18 all day long with this horse. And as I said, if he decides to drop the hammer, this field, they could be in trouble. But there's always a but with him.